Hello class and Professor Cross. This is my Biology 125 final project presented by myself, Stephen Listyo. I'll be discussing the triple threat between the earthworms, which is from the Annelida group, sponges from the Porifera group, and crawfishes from the Arthropoda group. I'll be discussing about the locomotion system that applies to all three species, comparing from each other and also contrasting from each other. Moving forward to the next slide, I'll be discussing the earthworms from the Annelida group. Now here's an anatomy of an earthworm, and I'll be discussing of its features and how it is related to being locomotive. It says here that it contains bristles made of chitin on their segmented bodies. So as we can see here, their bodies are segmented, like dozens of rolls in one. And each segment contains four pairs of chetae or setae. So you can see these little tiny hairs coming on the bottom of the worm. Each segment is surrounded by longitudinal muscles. Right here we can see longitudinal muscles, and it's also surrounded by circular muscles as well. Earthworms are able to coordinate the contraction of these two sets of muscles for movement, especially burrowing in dirt or soil. So burrowing is pretty much allowing the earthworms to dig deep in dirt or soil, probably a couple inches deep or a feet or two. And their skin functions as its respiratory organ due to their blood vessels being heavily present in the skin area. They are also able to contract and expand its length. So regarding about locomotion, they're able to wiggle their way through soil and dirt through their muscles and also through the little hair-like structures below each segment. Next, I will be talking about the sponges from the Porifera group. As you can see, this is an anatomy of a typical sponge in the ocean. I'll be starting off with the amoebocytes, which is this blue star-like structure here. Amoebocytes are totempotent, which enables it to be flexible by adjusting its shape in response to physical environmental changes like wave directions. So there was a study conducted regarding to test if sponges have these specific sensory neurons in the amoebocyte area. And this study was conducted, and they were able to find that the shape of the amoebocytes would change due to the current changes of the waves or the pressure of the ocean as well. Amoebocytes can transport nutrients to other cells of the sponge body, so pretty much the amoebocytes can transport the cells throughout the whole body. And sponges are considered hermaphrodites, function as male or female simultaneously. Cross-fertilization occurs when sperm is released by one sponge and connects to a sponge that functions as a female, and then forming a zygote, which develops into a flagellated swimming larvae that disperses from the parent sponge, eventually settling on a suitable substrate or foundation and developing into a sessile adult. Sessile meaning they do not move, so a sponge technically does not move at all. There is not really any physical locomotion that applies to a sponge, but regarding about cross-fertilization, yes, there is movement that is happening outside of a sponge by itself. And the next group I'll be discussing will be from the Arthropoda group, specifically a crawfish. Now, crawfish does have segmented body structures and jointed appendages. As you can see, its body structure has different regions. There's the abdomen, and there's also like these segmented parts as well. Groups of segments become functionally united as body regions, which are specialized for feeding, walking, or swimming. So as we know, at this point, they do have legs that helps them to be immobile, always moving around, and also helping them to swim and feeding with these giant claws as well to help them catch their prey. The division of labor among different body regions. So each body region has its own job, right? The legs, the claws, the head, and the tail area as well. Walking legs on the thorax region. A crawfish also has a rigid exoskeleton, and it provides points of attachment for the muscles that moves appendages. And you can't really see it here. It says eye stalkless results in less locomotor activity. So there was a study conducted regarding crawfishes that if they are eye stalkless, then their locomotor activity will decrease compared to those that are not live-stalkless. So interesting study. So moving on to the compare and contrast results regarding these three species. Crawfishes and earthworms are composed of segmented body structures. As I mentioned before, they do have like some division on their body, but composed in one whole piece. They stay mobile, while sponges are sessile. So as I mentioned before, the sponges do not move specifically unless they're doing cross-fertilization. That's pretty much the only time that it really does move outside of the sponge's residence. Crawfishes and earthworms have muscles to help with movement, while sponges don't have muscles. So this is a big difference as well between the three organisms. Sponges don't have muscles. That's why there's no movement. Crawfish and earthworms do share a similarity in having walkable legs, again, regarding about locomotion. Sponges don't have any organs, but earthworms and crawfishes do. They are all considered invertebrates. And getting to the conclusion, although earthworms, crawfish, and sponges are invertebrates, they have certain differences from each other. Interestingly enough, earthworms and crawfish are quite similar in many ways compared to the porifera group sponges. So as mentioned earlier, they do have legs, organs, and tissues as well, besides sponges. Locomotion is clearly applied upon crawfish species under the Arthropoda group and earthworm species under the Annelida group. Locomotion is not possible except in terms of sexual reproduction through cross-fertilization. This is regarding the sponges. Locomotion is an important system for survival and expansion for all species. It is applied in many different aspects. Muscles, tissues, and organs are examples of how locomotion is possible for the species such as Annelida and Arthropoda. But they all three do share a common ancestor. And I do have the cited sources from the cases that were conducted regarding the three organisms. And that completes my presentation. Thank you, Professor Cross, and thank you, class. And I wish you guys a great semester. Thank you.